Washington Nationals are sitting high atop the NL East standings, but the Mets are lurking right behind them. They go head-to-head this weekend. The pregame Saturday is at 6 Eastern and Sunday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio. This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Greeny. Thank you for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. This is what we have for you from Monday. The NFL setting new rules after Deflategate, but they still haven't ruled on Tom Brady's appeal. Doug Glanville stops by. We tip our caps to baseball's Hall of Fame class of 2015. We discuss A-Rod's resurgence and the worst two words in sports. Wait till you hear what they are. You will, coming up now.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
We'll start with Immortality Day in Cooperstown, which is always great.
Listen, you know how much I love the induction speeches, and again, I loved it yesterday. Not the stats, not what got them there, but just their backstories. Just maybe you'll find out about that person you never heard of that they talked about through their career or heard about through their career that really helped them get where they wanted to go. And, you know, obviously you have the serious stuff, you have the funny stuff. Smoltz was really trying to throw out some of the humor, as he said he was going to do as well, going picking on Maddox and Glavin a bit. So that was funny. So I just dig it. I just love it. 4 of them worked out very well. I really, really enjoy the story and the road that these guys take to get to immortality. What I did not know is I watched a whole nother feature on Randy Johnson. I knew he liked taking pictures. I didn't know to what extent that he is into picture taking with the cameras. That goes all the way back to USC days where he was a two-sport guy but also took pictures for the school as well. I did not realize that. So it was cool to learn some different things about the guys, but love these speeches.
Well, one of the things that we got from Randy Johnson yesterday was unexpected, and that is a little bit of humor.
Yeah.
A person who did not probably generate a whole lot of laughter during his career and certainly scared a lot of opposing batters during his career went into the Hall of Fame with a smile on his face.
I never thought I would be on this stage, baseball's greatest fraternity, and it's humbling to look behind me and see the best who have ever played this game. So many of the reasons that I've been inducted in the Hall of Fame are long gone now. I no longer have a fastball. I no longer have a bad mullet. And my scowl is long gone. I'm so happy to be elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame and be in the greatest fraternity of all time.
Randy Johnson yesterday, special day, with a smile on his face.
Smile on his face.
I didn't recognize him with a smile on his face.
I also completely forgot that he finished with the Giants. I completely forgot that, and I heard a couple other people actually tweeting that out as well in watching a special on him. But he did have that scowl. He had that hair coming out from under that hat and just peering over that mitt and just that scowl on his face. And when he got emotional, that's an imposing figure at 6'10".
My favorite recollections of Randy Johnson, beyond obviously some of the huge performances, the one playoff run they had in Arizona where they won the World Series, the amazing game where he came in and pitched in relief in the playoff game against the Yankees, and so many great moments. But I'll never forget being at the All-Star game when he faced Kruk.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
Kruk was like running backwards on every pitch. He turned his helmet around and was facing in the opposite direction. You know, Kruk had a great sense of humor then and now, and brought that out in Randy Johnson then. It was one of the few sort of, that's what the All-Star game could be and should be about, and to fuel your argument, not to bring it back here, it's the one thing that playing the game for with the outcome mattering sort of takes away, is that you had an opportunity to do sort of fun, goofy things like that in the All-Star game. So those are some of the funny moments that you remember from Randy Johnson. Obviously, look, what can you say? He's one of the greatest pitchers of all time, one of the greatest left-handed pitchers of all time, one of the dominant fastball throwing, just scary-looking dudes ever to take him out.
Early in his career, I mean, you know, with lack of control or trouble with his control, especially early in his career, how tough was that for batters? A 6'10" guy, gangly dude with some control issues who can whip the ball, you know, over 95 miles an hour, and you're standing in the batter's box. Had to be interesting early on to bat against him.
He obviously had, you could just tell he had sort of he just looked like he had evil intentions up there, didn't he? He was an imposing-looking pitcher over the years, obviously well-deserved of going into the Hall of Fame, as were all of the members of the class yesterday. John Smoltz, who we've befriended a little bit over the years now, particularly in his career in broadcasting and all of that, got up and he took a portion of his speech to get very serious about a subject he thinks is very important for the future of baseball.
To the next inductee, I'd be remiss if I did not talk about Tommy John. I've been given an opportunity as one of the only players, the only one right now, to be inducted in the Hall of Fame with Tommy John surgery. It's an epidemic. It's something that is affecting our game. It's something that I thought would cost me my career, but thanks to Dr. James Andrews and all those before him, performing the surgery with such precision has caused it to be almost a false read, like a Band-Aid you put on your arm.
He then got into a little bit more serious subject or thought on the reality of Tommy John, how many kids are having it now, and all the rest of it.
It is an epidemic, and he's talked about it on this show and many shows about that. And you get your 20 minutes in your speech, you have time to bring something like that up, and it was obviously important to him. As in case you missed it there, didn't quite grasp it the way he said it. He is the only person in the Hall of Fame right now with Tommy John surgery.
He won't stay that way.
No, it will not stay that way, but he is right now. So I thought that was very important. And then he brought a little humor in there. I kind of dug that as well. You knew he was going to throw a little bit of shade, as they say, on Maddox and Glavine. And he did. He did, to the point of, I loved his one line where he said those guys were I don't know if we have it or not.
We don't.
But those guys were fantastic teammates. He said, when I lost my curveball, those guys helped me find it again. He said, when I lost my golf book, and you all know what a golfing freak he is, he said, those guys tirelessly helped me find it. And then he said, when I lost 20 pounds, those guys found it. I thought that was just a fantastic line.
We'll have more from all of them. Again, Pedro Martinez, Craig Biggio, a fabulous class. We'll play you through the morning. We'll continue to let you hear some of the sounds from yesterday's Hall of Fame inductions in Cooperstown. Of course, the scene will shift from a Hall of Fame perspective from Cooperstown to Canton, as it does every single year, and there is a little bit of controversy surrounding the Pro Football Hall of Fame inductions. It may not be aimed in the right place, and it may or may not even be justified, but it is certainly something that requires conversation, and we will today as we go. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. You can save hundreds on your car, business, or recreational vehicle insurance from a local independent agent. Go to Progressive.com today. Now that's Progressive. Okay, a decision made yesterday on Deflategate.
Yes.
But nothing decided on Tom Brady. As we are now well over a month, bear in mind his appeals hearing, Brady's with Goodell in New York, was June 23rd. Today is July 27th. So we are staring right now at 34 days and counting that we are waiting. And while the league has yet to make, or while the commissioner has yet to make a decision regarding Brady's appeal, the NFL did tell its officials, its referees and company this weekend, there will be new procedures for this coming season regarding how footballs will be prepared and how they will be monitored. The most notable developments are the number of footballs prepared, random testing. Whoever would have thought we would apply the term random testing to the air pressure of footballs. Yeah. But that's where we are now. Plus, changes in the oversight of the footballs once they've been checked by officials. There's no change in the properties of the football, which means they'll still have to be between 12.5 and 13.5 pounds per square inch, which is what they were and what they were supposed to be all the time. Here are a summary of some of the key changes this season. Each team will be required to supply 24 footballs to the officials' locker room 2 hours and 15 minutes prior to the game. That's a slight change from the way it used to be for road teams. It's insignificant in the big picture. Next, the referee will designate 2 members of his crew to conduct a pregame inspection to make sure all footballs require or meet the required specifications. Last season, the referee was the sole judge, i.e., last year, they barely paid any attention. Right. Now they're going to. Next, the officials will number the balls 1 through 12. Last season, the balls were not numbered, so they'll be able to tell them apart.
Yeah, they were numbered. They were marked by the official. He marked them, but it was all the same mark on all the balls.
Right, so you knew that they were official balls.
Right, but now you can differentiate between the balls.
Correct. You couldn't tell if this was one. Right. Good distinction there. You knew that it was one of the balls they were approved to be using, but we did not have any sort of way of knowing, that was 1 and that was 6 and that was 12. Now we do. How important is that? Well, who the heck knows? Next, the officials will measure the pounds per square inch and record that measurement corresponding to the numbered ball. Last season, no such record was kept, so there's the significance. Ball number 1 was 12.6. Ball number 2 was 12.6. Ball number 3 was 12.7. Ball number 4, you got to be kidding me, but this is the conversation that we're having. Any game ball within the allowable range will be approved, and the PSI level will not be altered. Any game ball approved to be too high or too low will either be deflated or inflated. Last year, there was no specific measurement to deflate or inflate them to. Any ball that does not fall within the regs, they're going to put it into, they're going to make it 13.0 exactly. And so now they are going to then designate at random. They go through the kicking balls. No one wants to hear us talk about the kicking balls.
But this is my favorite part. There is a separate kicking ball coordinator for the 6 kicking balls out there, which are different than the other balls. So about 10 minutes prior to the game, this is the line that gets me. At this point, the kicking ball coordinator, along with a member of the officiating crew and a security representative, will bring the footballs to the on-field replay station. So now a security representative will accompany the official and the kicking ball coordinator to carry the footballs. This is like these contests when, when in the company of whoever has, does all of the voting and has everything, and you bring it up in that case by the representative, and the security officials bring it in. Now we have security bringing footballs on the field.
Now let's get to the important part here. During halftime, the balls from both teams will be inspected, and the PSI results will be measured and recorded by the 2 designated members of the crew who inspected them during the pregame. Once measured, those game balls will then be secured by the security representative and removed from play. The backup balls will then be used for the second half. At the end of any randomly selected game, the balls will be returned to the officials' locker room, where all game balls from each team will be inspected and the results will be recorded. So they have gone from paying basically no attention to the inflation level of a football, basically none. I mean, if you read the Wells report and then you read the Patriots' response to the Wells report, I mean, one guy who was a part-time employee working like 6 days a year had sole control of the football for a period of time, and no one had a problem with that. So this is something that they did not think was even remotely significant beforehand, and now they have security representatives monitoring the footballs at all times. So one of 2 things, or maybe both are true. One, they never took this nearly seriously enough before, or 2, they are now dramatically overreacting to what has happened here with Tom Brady, and what and certainly if you listen to Sal Palantoni over the weekend, are the beliefs that a lot of teams around the NFL believe that the Patriots have been playing fast and loose with this rule in particular for some time.
Well, I don't know if it was it they didn't take it seriously, or they never thought, you put a rule into play and sometimes you kind of never really think about it again. Just you never think that's going to be messed with. I guess it's one of those things. You didn't think jerseys were going to be messed with. All of a sudden they started getting sprayed. And so the league, reacted to that. Then, something else. The Stickum, once that was, now you started looking for Stickum. Once Stickum was not allowed in the game anymore. So was it they didn't take it serious, or they never thought it would be an issue? And sometimes that happens. You never think it's an issue until what? Till it becomes an issue.
Right.
And then this became an issue, and then, listen, I think we both believe still that they would have handled it, make it a uniform or a whatever malfunction. Uniform malfunction is the wrong term, but tampering with whatever equipment, fine it and move on. Everything has been brought on them by themselves, this whole thing, by going to the report and making it as big an issue. Now, the people most bummed about this are the officials who have to keep checking the balls. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
At halftime, they got to do it. After the game, they got to do it. Listen, not to say that, oh, my God, it's the worst thing in the world they ever have to do, but this is where we've gotten to. And have we gotten there because the league feels that it was taken advantage of, and now when they look back, they say, you know what, maybe people had taken advantage of this, and now it's time for us. Because, let's be honest, that's what you do. You find rules, and then you find a way to get around the rule. That's if you want to use the old line, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And I know people hate that line, but that's what happens. It happens with lawyers reading a contract; they find the loopholes. It happens when we're talking sports here. It happens with athletes. Athletes see rules, and you find a way to kind of skirt them as best you can. And did they feel that this was maybe being skirted and maybe it was going on for a while and now they need to crack down on it? Or is it there's so much headlines on this brought on because they brought on the investigation and everything that they feel they have to have this type of response to it?
Well, it certainly was what was trending for a lot of the late day yesterday. What's trending now, brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Drink it straight or sip it slow. Have you tried 5-Hour Energy lately? Here's the thing. There are so many different ways that this can be looked at. But to me, the most significant one is this. The NFL has to work out a deal with Brady and the Players Association. They have to. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't consider myself an expert I don't consider myself as one having legal expertise. despite the fact that my father was a lawyer. But it is worth, I think anyone can look at this thing and say that if Brady and the Players Association take Goodell to court and say, and Goodell's argument is, we have suspended Tom Brady, at least in part, based on the fact that the integrity of our sport was threatened by his actions, by what we believe his actions to have been, and what the person who prepared this report for us believes is there was at least a 51% chance his actions were. I think the answer can very well be, you have never, ever taken this seriously before, as evidenced by the fact that you couldn't tell us which gauge you were using to judge the air pressure at halftime of the AFC Championship game and whether it was the same gauge you were using before the game. And now you have instituted a series of extraordinarily strict regulation after the fact. So this is something you were not taking seriously, so it's going to be very difficult for you to look us in the face and say, this threatened in a significant and meaningful way the integrity of our game. An equipment malfunction, you're right, malfunction is not the right word. What are we looking at? An equipment transgression, whatever it is, was always viewed as a $25,000 fine. Previous occasions in which someone has messed with the football, meaning when the Vikings and the Panthers were holding them up to the heaters during a game, right, it resulted in a $25,000 fine and a sternly worded letter not to do that anymore. All of a sudden, it's a 4-game suspension, $1 million fine, the docking of draft picks, and all the rest of that. Why? Because the other owners don't like the Patriots? Because they think that they've been getting away with murder for a long time? We're hearing this now from Jim Irsay? Are you serious? I mean, I'm absolutely stunned that they have allowed themselves to get into this position. And every action they have taken, now look, maybe there's something behind, maybe there's something going on here I don't know. Maybe something will happen that will explain all of this to me. But the only explanation I can come up with is they have made up their own minds. They're going to have to work out a deal with the Players Association, because to me, if this does wind up in court, and I think Brady will take them there, how does this not bury them? How is this not a tacit, if not more than that, acknowledgement that, you know what, we never took this seriously in the first place. But once we figured out someone might be doing it, we consider it such an extraordinary threat to the integrity of our game that we have suspended the best player in our sport for a quarter of a season.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think what else is going to hurt him as well is Southpaw had the report, we heard the report that there were owners that were kind of encouraging Roger Goodell to stick to the 4-game suspension, and he named the Colts and the Ravens as far as owners that were involved in this. And here's where that can bite him, to use your term, in the tuchus. While the CBA agreed to, so that means the union did as well, agreed to let Roger Goodell hear this appeal, the definition of Roger Goodell hearing the appeal is he has to be unbiased in hearing this appeal. And if owners, the people he works for, are influencing him or trying to influence him to do whatever, in this case, keep the 4-game suspension, then he becomes unbiased in this if he's getting pressured from the owners, the people he works for. So if that can be proven, now, I don't know if that can be proven or not, because the Ravens are already screaming from the mountaintops, we haven't done anything like that. But if that could be proven, that would be horrible for the league, that their owners are trying to influence their employee, Roger Goodell, to keep the suspension wherever it is, 4 games or knock it to 2 or whatever. But any involvement by the owners could be looked at in a bad way by the court.
Listen, and Steve Bisciotti, the owner of the Ravens, who famously was playing golf, and you read all the stories, the Ray Rice stories with Goodell at Augusta and all the rest of that, said, I have not and will not put any pressure on their commissioner or anyone representing the office to take action in what everyone is calling Deflategate. The story circulating that I've put pressure on Roger is 100% wrong. The reports are unfair to Robert Kraft, who is an honorable person, and to his franchise. Let's talk about football and the start of training camps. Fans and people like me want the issue resolved now. Well, they can resolve it anytime they want. Feel free to issue a decision, and then we can get on with our day. But what all this does is it doesn't address, but it casts a spotlight on what really is their biggest problem.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Read a couple of tweets here that came in on some of the conversation we were having. Lord Humongous tweets at us, don't get fooled. Deflategate is nobody's fault, but the Patriots once again ruining it for everybody. I understand the thinking behind it. No one would love to blame them more than me. I actually don't agree.
Listen, they were caught with the footballs under deflated, at least by the report, at least by NFL's reports. The report they did to refute it says differently. The bottom line of it, neither one of us thought it was worthy of all this attention anyway.
Papa Dog tweets at us, perhaps the NFL should simply hire Sepp Blatter to oversee the inflation of footballs for the coming season. And then lastly, Mike, I'd like you as a former player to answer this one from Gary Kunkel, who tweets, why can't they just let each team put whatever air pressure they want in the football?
I don't know. I don't know the reason. I mean, I really don't know the reason for it. I would have thought.
Well, isn't it, if the ball is deflated, isn't it easier for, at least for some people to throw, and more to the point, not to fumble, but hold it if it has a little
The more
give?
the ball is deflated while you have a grip on the ball, you can get a better grip. That doesn't mean it can travel better, especially in weather when it's deflated. So I would have, to be honest with you, I didn't even know there were PSI levels when all this started. I just thought it was, you give the footballs to the quarterbacks, they kind of get the feel how they want, and then they get the grip how they want. I didn't know there was a range, what the reason is. But, yes, deflated footballs, underinflated footballs, you definitely can grip more as a receiver, as a running back, so you could fumble less. So I definitely could see that. Overinflating. Listen, Aaron Rodgers says he likes them a little. The football's a little harder, a little more to the over. And
that's what I'm saying. So
when I say overinflated,
like them differently.
Yeah, when I say overinflated, I don't mean past the PSI level, but he likes them more inflated than others. So I'm not going to lie. I didn't know there was this PSI thing anyway. I just thought it was to the liking of the quarterback.
All right, we'll find one way or another. I believe we're going to hear this week. I believe one way or another a decision is going to be made this week.
I think you have to. I think if you're, even though Brady, if he's suspended, he can still practice in training camp and play in preseason games. If he really isn't going to play in the first game or 2 or 3 or 4, it's fair to the team to know that, to how many reps you want to give Jimmy Garoppolo, your backup quarterback. I think the decision has to come down here.
All right, keep that Twitter flying in through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Comparing rates to help you save. Now, that's Progressive. Call or click today. Find out how much Progressive could save you. You made a good point, and we both would like to give a movie review here. We both went and saw Southpaw separately this weekend, which is the new movie with Jake Gyllenhaal that opened on Friday, and he was in our studio Friday. I think we both, and frankly, our audience, loved him.
Yeah,
he was just a cool person.
Really, really was. Yes.
He was very friendly. The stuff you don't see behind the scenes, he was very friendly with everybody here, with the staff and everybody.
And we've had people who haven't been. So, a lot of people say, they're just doing that because they're promoting a movie. You know what? When the cameras are off, it doesn't always work that way. But he was fantastic.
Let me tell
everybody.
You, the prima donna factor on Hollywood is the prima donna factor. Excuse me, the prima donna factor in sports times a million, at least from what I've witnessed. And we've had the biggest stars in the world in sports around. The biggest star in sports doesn't have 1/10 the ego that I've seen a lot of times amongst Hollywood types. And I'm not saying Jake Gyllenhaal doesn't have an ego. He probably does. But he was extremely friendly to everyone. That's not the point. The point is we both saw the movie this weekend, and we both had thoughts, and we'll both give a review. Golic, I'll give you the floor first.
I gave my donut review right away. Out of 5 donuts, I gave it 3.5. 3.5. I thought Jake Gyllenhaal, was fantastic in it. Forrest Whitaker, I thought, was excellent in it as well. I just thought the characters in there that were kind of underdeveloped. Some of the storylines were a little underdeveloped, and I don't want to say too much to give it away, because the movie just came out, so I'm not going to go down that road. But that's just kind of what we were discussing in the movie when we were watching it. Me and Chris and my son Mike went to see it, and Mike is like Adnan. He's like,
he's the Roger Ebert of really aspiring NFL offensive linemen.
We were kind of asking a few of the questions during the movie, so a little bit from a character underdeveloping story. But Jake was fantastic. I thought Forrest Whitaker was as well. I thought the boxing scenes were really good. So I gave it a 3.5 donuts. I thought it was really good.
I agree. I'm going to give a review of it, an official review as far as number, but I didn't realize, I don't know why I didn't see this. Obviously, I follow you on Twitter. Golic is at ESPN Golic. I'm at ESPN Greeny. I didn't see that you had given an actual emoji review. I'd like to do the same, but I haven't decided which emoji to use.
Yeah.
They do have a tomato emoji.
Are people going to know because you have Rotten Tomatoes out there, so you can't go down
I can't go that way. I can't do a caprese salad. So I'm asking, I just threw it up right there on Twitter just now, so you can go to at ESPN Greeny and tweet me, what emoji should I use?
There's a lot of emojis out there.
There's a ton. So which emoji should I use? And this, whatever we decide today, will be my official movie review emoji. And I am going to give it 3 out of 5. And not only because I'm not sure if you can do a half an emoji.
Well, I did I wish there was a half a donut, but I did 3, and then I put a half.
Oh, in your case, there's always a half a donut.
No, there's never a half a donut. Who are you kidding?
Fair enough. Fair enough. And you know, it's interesting. I felt exactly the same way you did. Here's where I like the movie. First of all, I thought Jake Gyllenhaal was tremendous. He inhabits this boxer, and I didn't know until Ray told me that they originally wrote the movie wanting Eminem to play the part, and Eminem does do a bunch of music for it, and that part is fantastic. The training part with the Eminem music is really, really good. And I thought Jake Gyllenhaal was just phenomenal all the way around. I thought he looked the part. The fighting was great. I thought he was terrific. I actually thought all of the performances were excellent, but I had exactly the same reaction you did, although I had it after the fact. I kept waiting. There were a bunch of things in the movie. This was my dissatisfaction with it. A, they're trying to channel Rocky. They're trying to be the Rocky of this generation. The Rocky characters, in my opinion, are what makes that movie so spectacular is that beyond Rocky, the other characters are unforgettable, right? Mickey is unforgettable.
Well, of course. Apollo Creed.
Apollo Creed is unbelievable, although he's less developed in the first Rocky, really, than the other movies. But he is great. But Mickey and Talia Shire's character, Paulie, and Adrian. Thank you. My goodness. How did that jump out of my head? Adrian. Yeah. Those characters became like unforgettable. They were tremendous characters. None of them did that for me in this movie. None of them. They didn't really.
I'm with you there. They didn't really give you that outside of Jake.
I don't want to do any spoilering.
No.
But so I'm not going to get into what it was. But there's something that happens early in the movie that is never explained. That I kept waiting. That I think is an extraordinarily important. I would have thought was an extraordinarily important thing involving 50 Cent's character. That they never explain. I kept thinking to myself, well, they're going to come back at some point and explain it, and they never do. So they leave, in my opinion, one extremely important question unresolved. So it's a movie that while it was going on, I enjoyed it a lot. I think it is very entertaining.
It is worth seeing, I think, but when you leave, you'll start thinking back and saying, I could have used a little more development there or there. And do you call him 50 Cent or 50 Cent?
50. Well, yeah, I know it, and I think colloquially it is 50.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I should say, I mean, do I sound right saying 50 Cent?
Listen, every time we have any kind of a rapper entertainer in here, you try and sound like
Okay, fair enough. Then 50, whatever it is. Either way, I mean, I thought he was good in the movie, but there's a very important question about his character that, in my opinion, is never answered. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Is never answered. So anyway, do I recommend the movie? I do. I think it's worth seeing if you like sports movies and everything. It's basically Rocky for this generation, and I think Gyllenhaal is tremendous. I think he has a chance to get nominated for an Oscar.
He did a great job in it. He did. He certainly looked the part, and I did like the boxing scene, so credit to the other actors who were in there as well.
Yes, the guy who plays the quote-unquote villain, the Apollo Creed of this, is terrific.
Yeah, he is.
His performance is terrific. Actually, I thought he was much more despicable, much more hateable. He does the whole Mr. T thing. I mean, they try and create the whole Mr. T thing.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
But with totally different consequences in the movie. Anyway, I do recommend the movie if you like sports movies. It's a good movie. It's not a great movie. It's a good movie. Couple of quick things on the movie.
Okay.
It happened again.
What happened?
We went to the same theater where we had gotten the parking ticket.
Oh, because you parked.
Because on a Sunday, they do not. It's pay parking. If you remember this a couple of weeks ago, there's a movie theater near my house where you go and you pay parking. It's one of those where you park and then you walk over and you put your credit card in and you
put it in your dashboard.
And you put it in your dashboard. So you might remember a couple of weeks ago, my wife Stacy, she was parking the car at that theater and I ran in to buy the tickets. And she comes in and says to me, Michael, it turns out you don't have to pay to park on Sundays. And I thought, oh, how great. And when we came out, there was a parking ticket. And it turns out just some random dude said that to her, rather than some person in an official capacity, and we got punked. And she was all upset. And I suggested that it was a teachable moment.
Which was a bad thing to do.
I would describe my having said that, as it turns out,
far worse than what she did.
As having been a teachable moment. Yep. I've learned a lot from that moment. Anyway, it happened again yesterday, but in totally different circumstances. So we go to the theater, same theater. We park. As we're parking, I say, I'm going to get the parking. I'm going to pay for the parking.
This is yesterday.
Okay. Same. So it's a Sunday again.
Right. Okay.
We know we're not getting fooled again. We're going to pay for the parking.
Okay.
So I go over to pay for the parking. So it says, when I put in the number of the space, the parking space is number 154. It says I can pay for the maximum. So I said, I'm paying for the maximum.
Okay.
No question. I'm not taking any chances. The maximum is $2. For the $2, I'm not taking any chances.
Right?
I can afford the $2.
Good for you.
So I take the maximum. We put the thing in. We watch the movie. We come out. There's a ticket on the car.
Seriously.
I'm outraged. As it turns out, certain parts of the lot, and in my opinion, not marked as well as they could be, are 2-hour only parking. And others are not. But in my opinion, maximum then is extraordinarily misleading. You got to tell me somewhere in the transaction that I'm only getting 2 hours. So Stace thinks this is the greatest thing that has ever happened. The parking ticket is $25, so the experience cost me $23. I said I'm fighting it. This is ridiculous. She said, no, Michael. This is a teachable moment.
Good for her.
So
good for her.
We got it. You tell me. What does maximum mean?
So after you came out and saw that at some places are 2-hour parking, did you see a sign that said 2-hour parking?
Yes.
Did you see that your spot was in the 2-hour parking area?
After the fact, well, yes, I did.
The judge doesn't care about after the fact.
There should be a big sign and blinking lights.
Well, now you're talking about
in this spot. You can only park for 2 hours, you idiot.
Where's the sign?
It's kind of over on the side, and it's very discreet. It's mixed with a lot of other little instructions of things. It was not connoted nearly specifically enough, in my opinion.
Okay, you'll lose. I wouldn't fight it, and don't embarrass yourself. Pay the fine, and move on with your life.
I'm very.
And you know what? Here's my next thing.
Yeah.
Don't ever go to that movie theater again.
Well, that's the thing. As Hembo just sent me, why would a movie theater parking lot have a 2-hour parking?
What kind of place do you? I have never been to a movie theater in my life where I had to pay for parking. What kind of city do you live in? They pay for everything.
What can I tell you? I mean, I don't make the rules. I show up in the parking lot.
That's what I'd fight. I would go to that theater, try and get other moviegoers to band together. And that's what you guys need to fight.
I agree.
And you need to boycott that theater until they stop making you pay for parking.
Okay, I'm totally on your side. One way or another, I really don't think this was my fault. Finally, before we get... I refuse to accept that this was my fault. Finally, before we get on to the other business at hand, all right. I've been promising this all morning long. They are the 2 worst words I've ever heard in sports. I just saw the headline, and I didn't really feel like I needed to read any more. Did you hear the story this weekend about A's outfielder Billy Burns? He said he felt better Saturday than he did the night before. But he was out of the starting lineup for the second game of the A's series against the Giants. He said, I told the trainer I think I can play today, but he thinks it's best if I rest. I can still feel a little soreness, but it's a lot less pain than last night, so I think I'm good to go. Do you know what his injury was?
You know what? I do not.
Burns' cringe-worthy injury was termed a testicular contusion. Testicular contusion. The rookie said it won't cause him to change his mind and begin wearing a cup. The manager, Bob Melvin, said that's a personal choice. I'll say this. Having read that story, I am now wearing a cup. Just walking around. The very notion of a testicular contusion.
Did he get kicked in the ding-ding?
I don't know exactly how I didn't read the entirety of the story. I just read that part of it. We'll see how the day goes, the manager said, about possibly using him off the bench. It does not get into specifics of exactly how he suffered.
I'd like to know. Kicked in the ding-ding?
Oh, he fouled the ball.
Oh, no.
He fouled the ball off himself.
See, that's bad because here again, I don't want to get too graphic, but when we're talking about coming up underneath, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Let me tell you, that'll ruin your day. There's getting kicked in the ding-ding, and there's coming up underneath. And all you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. You women have no clue what I'm talking about. Guys, that's brutal. Let me tell you what. Takes your breath away.
It does a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Let's see here, the ball, some players choose to wear cups, some do not. He was wearing, it turns out he was not wearing a cup. He suffered the injury. Look, let's not get into any more detail than we need to. The injury is termed a testicular contusion.
Yeah.
And I can honestly tell you, in all of my life covering sports, that was the least pleasant 2 words I've ever read.
The hardest thing about that, and because you're always told as an athlete, if you get hit in the ding-ding, is to listen. When you see a guy get hurt on a field of play, whatever field it is, what do they normally do? They grab the injury. And you're taught at a young age, don't grab.
Oh, I just saw it.
Yeah.
Oh, Ray just pulled it up. You were exactly right. He fouls it down into the ground. It bounces up. Oh my goodness.
That's an underneather.
Oh, that's bad.
That's an underneather right there.
Oh, that's bad. Oh, and and he was not wearing a cup.
Yeah, well,
like I said, I put one on. Just reading the story, I can't fathom. That's as bad at looking thing as.
And I'm going to be honest. I don't know if a cup would have protected that. Because it
wouldn't have hurt.
The way, the cup doesn't really, I don't want to get too specific, but any guy that's ever worn a cup, you're coming up underneath and where this ball, I don't think a cup would have worked. Oh, my Lord.
It was tough to watch.
But then, he's doubled over, hands on his knees. Again, you want so badly to grab your injury. you just can't.
Hembo just searched care for testicular contusion. Lie on your back and pull your knees to your chest if you can. To me, the if you can is the best part of that sentence. Hold this position for as long as you feel comfortable. This can help with pain and swelling. Let me tell you, there is no amount of time that you can hold that position and feel comfortable. I'm thinking comfortable is weeks away.
And then if there's bruising.
It then says apply a cold pack.
Yeah.
A bag of ice or a bag of frozen vegetables wrapped in a dry towel.
Luckily,
can you imagine that? Can we get the frozen carrots out here, please?
Yeah.
Can someone get the frozen peas?
You know it would be something to do. In soccer, they run out and they use that cold spray. Could you imagine that? All right, drop them. We're going to use this cold spray. Freeze you on up.
Apply a cold pack. Do this for 10 minutes every hour. Bruising may take several weeks to heal. As it heals, the bruise will change color. It will likely turn from red, purple, blue, or greenish coloring to, and I just got an email that is covering up my screen here, to
yellow as it starts to lighten up. It'll change colors, get dark, and then get
to
a
light
lighter.
Yellow.
Yeah.
And then it says it ends by saying, this is normal.
Yeah. There was only one time in my life where bruising there was normal. It was after a certain operation I had, okay? Where I used the vegetables, it all bruised up and then went away. But
I didn't use the vegetables. Obviously, you're talking about a vasectomy.
Yeah, I
had a vasectomy also. I did not use the vegetables.
I did.
I worked the next day. Did you work the next day? I was here the next day.
But I iced up afterward.
I toughed it out.
Well, no, I was here, but I iced up afterward.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I didn't. I don't remember. It wasn't vegetables. I mean, I can't
sort of cold.
Let me ask you a question.
Because
do you then use the vegetables? I mean, at that point, are the vegetables no longer edible? I know they're in some sort of plastic casing, and still. Oh, honey, guess what we're having tonight? We're having chicken and these peas that I warmed up after you had them to treat your testicular contusion. I'm telling you right now, those are some frozen vegetables I'm not interested in eating.
Throw them back in the freezer, refreeze, and you go again.
Can't throw them back in the freezer.
You can.
What if they're making contact with other items in the freezer?
It's in a bag.
But the bag is going into the freezer.
It's in a bag holding the vegetables.
Let the record show that the images that are coming up on our researchers' research are not meeting company standards.
No.
This is a very bad day. All right.
But this is bad. Up and under is the worst way to go.
Oh, my goodness.
The worst way to go.
I think we could all just have a moment for him. A moment.
I'll just never forget my buddy at Notre Dame when he took one, in the ding-ding on the field during a game. Normally you go down and you grab something else. He got up. He put cupped both hands and cupped himself and ran off the field on national TV. I kid you not. On national TV, he's like galloping off the field with two hands down there cupping. I was like,
let's move on.
I think we know what he heard.
All right. My instinct suggests to me that we should move on from this.
Major League Baseball on ESPN Radio. The Washington Nationals are the defending National League East champions, and they sit high atop the division again this season. But the New York Mets are lurking close behind in second place.
Gone at 2 overnight.
Coming into this weekend series, the Nationals have won 7 of 10 from the Mets. Will the trend continue? The Nationals and Mets. The pregame Saturday is at 6 Eastern and Sunday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
The great Doug Glanville is in our studio with his Subway Fresh Take. We are Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. You've heard the discussion. You've obviously seen the play from the weekend. You played how many years in the majors?
9.
9 years
yeah.
in the majors. I assume you had something similar to this happen to you somewhere along the way?
Sure. I knocked myself out of a game at some point. Same play, same kind of play. I mean, I finished the at-bat, almost hit a home run. Then I just said, you know what, I'm seeing 3 pitchers right now. I'm going to leave right now.
What do you mean you finished the at-bat?
I finished the at-bat. It was in the middle of an at-bat. It was a foul ball. So
and
I
you went
got
down
back,
and
yeah.
you got back up again
back
and finished
up,
the
yeah.
at-bat.
How long did it take for you to get back up?
Yeah, I don't know, hour maybe. Or I don't. It's horrible. But look, these things, they're horribly designed, and I've read actually there was a mom.
What things are horribly designed?
The
cup itself. Thank you.
Cup. Yeah,
just thought it was important that we specify which things are horribly designed in this conversation.
Yeah, this exterior. So no, they're the plastic. It's a nightmare. You're chafing. So guys eventually just give up on it. They may come in the league trying it, but then they're like, whatever. Now our colleague, by the way, Alex Cora, who was a shortstop, never wore a cup. A shortstop. Now that's like a suicide mission. That's
short hop heaven, right?
But in outfield you kind of can get away with it a little bit. And obviously as a hitter, stuff can happen. But
did you wear one?
Well, I did wear one for some time. Certainly after that, I wore one the rest of my career. But they're horrible. They don't fit well.
They are. I was trying to explain this to Greeny.
Get used to
Greeny couldn't understand why every athlete wouldn't wear a cup, and they're just uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're horrible. But you should. To kids out there, excuse me, to kids out there, you got to wear it.
You should, and they need to make one that really kind of
curves, titanium.
There you go.
Well, there's a banana cup, the banana that curves.
Okay, no. Good. No, it's enough. It's enough. Okay. We get it. We all understand.
Listen,
we don't have to get more specific than that. The point of it is, for all young players out there, you should be wearing a cup. And take a lesson from Uncle Greeny. I wear one anyway. I don't even play. I just walk around that way because I think protection is sensible, my friends. This is a pain you don't want to experience. Okay, the more significant question on his 40th birthday is about Alex Rodriguez. And I asked the question on my Twitter page at ESPN Greeny, would you vote for Alex Rodriguez or a player in his circumstance? Because I don't want to get into debating A-Rod versus Prince Fielder as far as their seasons are concerned and their worthiness for the award. That is obviously the much less interesting conversation than Prince Fielder missed all but 42 games last year because of neck surgery, and Alex Rodriguez, we all understand, was suspended for the year by Major League Baseball. So the question is, would you, taking that into consideration, vote for A-Rod for Comeback Player of the Year? Chris tweets, absolutely not. Completely agree with Golic. A-Rod doesn't deserve it. Missed time by his own stupidity. Tim tweets, no, not an injury or a player who was released and started over. He was suspended for his own activities off the diamond. Larry, no way. He put himself in that position.
Other side, Benny said, comeback is comeback. No matter what you're overcoming, and he has reemerged as one of baseball's top guys, so yes, he can get the award.
Now, Lexi tweets at us, no way, I'm still convinced he's back on the juice. There's a whole other discussion to be had in that. But here's the thing.
Right.
If every time the Comeback Player of the Year award had been given, it had been given to a player who had suffered an injury, missed a bunch of time and come back, then I would be with you. But that is not the case. This award has been given many times to players who just had bad years and reemerged as stars. So that's pretty loose, right? It's just a guy who was much better this year than he was last year. And that leads me to say that if I believed a guy in Alex Rodriguez's situation, let's take Alex out of this discussion, guys, because people have such a strong feeling about him. What about Nelson Cruz? Right? What about would you consider voting him Comeback Player of the Year? Would you have in the year he came back when he had that huge season?
As I said, he can be considered. I would not. I would go for people who have missed because of something that they didn't have a hand in. That's where I would start. So it goes more to guys like Prince Fielder in this case, or other guys that are hurt and missed time and have come back, something not of their own doing. Or being suspended for PEDs is something of your own doing. If you want to, I'm not saying go ahead and vote for him if you want. I particularly would not, because I put more value on the comeback of coming back from something that you had nothing to do with.
Doug, I'm making you the only person whose opinion on this matters. Are you voting for him or not?
No, I'm not. I'm not voting for him. And look, it's self-induced, and it's a violation of a drug policy. Like, there's other circumstances where people, like you mentioned, had bad years and they came back, but once again, you're choosing something where you violated a policy, a drug policy, which is related to performance enhancement. Well, I think that's great. He's had a good year. And by the way, like the year before he was suspended. I don't know how bad that year was. I don't know what year we're comparing it to. So I think there's
when he came back, ironically, the year before, which would be 2013, was the day that he came back from injury on the day he was officially suspended for the rest of the year and the following season. Remember that? That was the day he came back. Then he was allowed to play for the rest of the season pending his appeal.
Played pretty well,
he played pretty well.
Yeah.
Not this well. He did play well. He did contribute offensively and played third. He was not hitting the way he's hitting now.
Right, exactly, and that's the thing. Like, usually you think of like, a guy had a bad year or he missed the year because he had a major disease he was overcoming, but I don't see PEDs as in the category of coming back from anything. I mean, because then you could argue, well, wait a minute, you were on before, so your performance was connected to what? To PEDs? You don't know where the line is about the player on PEDs and off PEDs and what exactly is he coming back from. I mean, he's had a great year. I mean, Ryan Braun made the All-Star team. I mean, you can get into that discussion, like, well, these guys All-Star, especially when they're not voted in, but coaches or managers or that second tier vote these guys in. So, look, he's had a great year, and he's played well, and the Yankees are in first place because of Alex Rodriguez. There's a lot of spoils you can enjoy besides those awards. My priority goes to Prince Fielders, guys come back from surgery, overcoming being just horrible and figuring it out, whatever. Those are way higher on the chain of my voting before PEDs.
Mike, Doug Glanville in our studio. All right, let me ask you now another even more interesting question. And this, again, it's A-Rod's 40th birthday today. Jordan Spieth turning 22 today, so two big birthdays in the world of sports. With regard to A-Rod and awards and voting and all that kind of stuff, we saw not just did the managers put the PED guys into the All-Star game, but fans voted PED guys into the All-Star game. You mentioned Braun, who had a circumstance that was just as crazy as anybody else's. A guy like Alex Rodriguez, the questions about him, first of all, in the year he's having and as well as he's playing, does that come into discussion? When you look at a guy like him right now, if he were to be in the MVP discussion, right? If a guy in his condition or situation were to be in the MVP discussion, would you vote for him for MVP? Or is that different from that player?
Well, that is different. That is different. I mean, if you're basing it on performance, there's no evidence now he's using or not or whatever. So, you vote with the information you have at hand. And so, yes, you would have to consider. I mean, he could have been an All-Star. You could have made a strong case for Alex Rodriguez being an All-Star this year. Especially, Braun made it also, and he was hitting 275 or so. So there's no question that MVP is a different category. Now, I'm not a big PED guy, so if I have that information, it's going to work against the player from my standpoint. But at the same time, Johnny Peralta, guys who've been in trouble before, they've had phenomenal years. And I think in baseball we say, well, you paid your dues, you paid your price, and now we're moving on and trying to look at this performance in front of us as authentic.
I agree 1,000% on that. Is you served your time, you come back. As long as you're under contract, someone wants to keep playing and not cut you, then you get to play. Or you get signed by someone. If you're not signed by someone, they can do that. And we've seen it happen with other PED guys who didn't have contracts get signed by teams. Then it goes on your performance. And if you perform well enough, yes, then you can get the MVP. I completely agree with that. I just would not be comeback player there. I would separate them as well.
Well, remember there was that whole little mini controversy about whether Nelson Cruz should be allowed to play in the playoffs when he came back and all the rest of that. His suspension ended, I believe, the last weekend of the regular season. So there was that discussion there. Should they put something in there that says if you get suspended during your year, you're not eligible for that year's postseason? These conversations have all come up. Let me ask you one more because of what you just said, Doug. The commissioner has made it clear he's a member in good standing of Major League Baseball right now, and there isn't any evidence, specific evidence that we have that he is not playing clean right now. But based upon his history and his reemergence, the way he is hitting right now, is it fair or unfair for people, because the second I tweeted the question, I've got a million of them flying back into me on Twitter. Is it fair or unfair for people to suspect him and to allow that to influence the way they think of what he is doing, that you suspect he's got to be on something?
I mean, it's fair. Sure, it's fair. I mean, that's just the track record. I mean, you can't deny the, sort of repetitive scenarios of this PEDs and the testing. And obviously the way it went down was much more on an investigative side. But, that's what happens. I mean, look, in this performing enhancement world of sports, it's connected, sort of going back to the beginning where you say, well, how did this guy perform? Well, this is what he chose to do. This is the road, and this is how he established the bar of performance. So, it's kind of the own cloud that you've created for yourself, right? You created this cloud of like, well, I don't know what you're doing. I'm not sure how you're actually producing. And that's the circle of just PED usage. You get into this, and unfortunately, it goes over a lot of players who are playing cleanly. That's the problem with it. But there's no question, once you establish that, it's hard to get away from it.
Absolutely fair, because then it brings into question how long have you been doing it, and would you continue doing it? And let's put it this way as well. Let's all not be. I'm sure we're not naive about it. He has not got popped this year. Remember, it was this whole paper trail thing that got him here. Mm-hmm. He has not flunked a test, and it is random drug testing, even for HGH. Remember, nobody in the 3 years of HGH testing has gotten have they gotten a positive test yet. So if he's getting tested this year, he hasn't tested positive. But that doesn't mean there are players in every sport that has testing that are using and not getting nailed for it and not coming up positive. Because one thing that will always happen is the steroid-making people will always stay ahead of the testing. That's just how it's been and how it will continue to be, from the oil-based steroids that I took back in the late 80s that stayed in your system for 6 weeks, to the cream and everything else that doesn't stay in your system as long, to HGH, which basically you have about a 48-hour window to find. So players will always, and doctors, that's the only term I can use right now, will come up, chemists will come up with things to beat tests, mask tests, as leagues try and stay up with that as well. So, yeah, but A-Rod put himself in this position, to go back to Doug's point, of yes, it's fair to think he's still using because he's put himself in that situation.
Yeah, and I think part of it, too, is that, you don't know, you have these players, and you mentioned the steroids, and obviously this sort of drug culture, it's a big challenge to figure out, like, the beginning and end. And so we have to go back to the restorative aspect, right? You have punishments, and you have to decide, are they strong enough? And once you kind of establish the ground rules, we try to work within that.
All right, Mike, Doug Glanville's in our studio, his Subway Fresh Take. Subway restaurants congratulating famous fan Mike Trout on a season-high 4 hits, a homer, and a grand slam yesterday. So he went deep twice, now has 31 on the year. From Little League to the Bigs, it's always been Subway for Trout. His protein-packed favorites, like the delicious sweet onion chicken teriyaki, help fuel his performance. Try one today, Subway. Eat fresh. All right, Doug, has the most significant move of deadline week already been made with the trade of Johnny Cueto to Kansas City?
I think so, because the Kansas City Royals established that, we don't necessarily need an ace. They went about it by having basically Ventura, their opening day starter, has struggled most of the year. He pitched well yesterday, but now they just went and said, okay, let's see what we have right here with this rotation. And they waited to see how this team was performing. They, by the way, ended up being one of the best teams in baseball without a true ace. And now they have the ace on top of it. So that's what they were missing last year with Madison Bumgarner and the Giants, really showing them the value of having a true ace.
So with a guy out there now like Cole Hamels, who is, they understand that Texas and the Dodgers could be interested in.
Yeah.
First, from a player's perspective, let's start there. If you're on Texas or the Dodgers, are you as a player, you basically saying, hey, anything you got to give it up now, because we're in a play to go win it right now. From a player. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, look, there's no question if Cole Hamels is put into the Dodger rotation, that's going to change everything for the Dodgers. I mean, they already have Kershaw and Greinke, which is phenomenal. But you add that third guy, a left-hander that matches up, splits sort of that rotation up. I mean, that's a nightmare for everybody else.
So now I'm putting you in management and ownership. Now, because from what we understand, the price is high.
Oh, yeah.
So we got till Friday at 4 Eastern is the deadline. And who knows if it goes all the way till then, to see if the Phillies will drop their price if nobody's buying, or if the Dodgers or Texas or whoever else pays that price. Now you're in management and ownership. How far are you willing to go?
You have to win now. I mean, it certainly depends on where your team is. If you're a team that's been there and already had a lot of success, you may not want to give up the future. But teams like the Dodgers, they have Seager, this young kid, shortstop. I mean, that's a big price. So they have to decide. Jock Peterson, obviously, these are the type of emerging talent you might have to give up. But this is Cole Hamels, and he's in the middle of a deal. So you're going to pay a price not just this year. He's not like he's a free agent. So you have to weigh that into account. Like, well, this guy, you're going to have to pay him through 2018 and the team option in 2019. So, but I have to say, like, in this market with the second wild card, it's worth it. You get this guy if you can, especially a team that really hadn't been there in a long time. Houston Astros, for example, gets Kazmir. These are game-changing moves.
Mike, Doug Glanville's in our studio. And then finally, yesterday, of course, a great day at Cooperstown with one of the biggest Hall of Fame classes we've seen in a very long time, and a star-studded one. Craig Biggio goes in, along with 3 pitchers, all of whom you faced during your career. So let's talk about them. Smoltz, Johnson, and Pedro. Let's start with Randy Johnson.
Yep.
We opened the show this morning talking about what it must have been like. I remember Crucky in the batter's box against him at the All-Star game and the fun that those guys had with that, back when you could do that in the All-Star game. What was it like facing Randy Johnson?
Well, it was almost like he was handing the ball to the catcher. I mean, this guy is 6'13" or whatever he had going on. But he was a slingshot guy. He kind of came across his body almost from the first base side. And what was unusual is he threw that hard, but he was unafraid of going in on righties. So he's kind of throwing across his body and coming in. So you're kind of diving out to the first base side, but then the ball's coming in. And it's coming in, by the way, at 100 miles an hour. Then he had a slider that you could swing and literally the ball could hit you. That's how much it moved. So, I mean, it was underestimated how well he became a control pitcher with that velocity. And that was something that people didn't realize. Like, he was a pinpoint master at a certain point, even though early on he was wild.
Can I ask you one thing on that, though? I'm sorry, Mike. Golic talks all the time about how when you get to be a professional athlete in any sport, intimidation, you think sometimes I overstate intimidation, right? You get up there, you're not scared. You're not scared. In football, you're not scared. I used to be scared when the Jets would take the field in Oakland at the Black Hole and the fans were yelling and screaming.
Right.
And Golic would say, these guys aren't scared. Was Randy Johnson intimidating even as a professional ball player, a major league hitter? Was there an element of intimidation that mattered with Randy Johnson?
Sure. Oh, it mattered. I mean, well, there was the one moment I think of is we had hit one of their players, okay, and I was leading off the next inning. Okay, no. Now that was the first time I was like, I may die right here on the field. And I was really not digging in at all. So, and he didn't hit me, he didn't throw at me, but and I know he knows he has to be responsible with 100 miles an hour. But that's how he is. And he's, like I said, he's 6'14", and he's got the hair, the mullet, the whole thing's coming at you. And just growling and scowling. And, I mean, he was intimidating.
Who'd you have the most success against of the 3?
Actually, against him, amazingly, because I've figured out that when there was runners in scoring position, he liked to throw a slider for a strike, and he'd throw it over the middle of the plate. He also was a guy who actually tipped pitches sometimes. His glove, so he'd face you, and when he stepped back and turned it, he threw a slider. And when he stepped back and went straight, he threw his fastball, and he went through a pattern like that. So you started to, have somewhat of a chance, and I was a pretty good fastball hitter. Now, a guy like Pedro Martinez, I mean, he had 4 pitches that looked like they were from a video game, really. I mean, the curveball, he threw a curveball that I was convinced it already hit me, and the catcher caught it for a strike, like down and away. And I still do not know how it got from there to there. I mean, phenomenal changeup, fastball, and just ice water in his veins.
Yeah, talk a little bit about him, because he had 2 seasons there, 99 and 2000, that rank by multiple statistical measures among the 10 greatest seasons in baseball history.
Yeah.
His numbers during the height of the steroid era are ridiculous. His speech yesterday I thought was fabulous. What was it like facing Pedro at his best?
I mean, you had no idea where the ball was coming from, and the fact is he could repeat his release point, so it all looked the same. It's like, okay, and you're trying to cover 4 different pitches in all locations. It's, if he's on at all location-wise, you're done, because he's a guy who can make mistakes and you can't hit it because the curveball had that much break to it. So, I faced him in 2000. I mean, the stuff is, it's second to none. By far, and that's saying a lot with these guys, the best stuff of that group. I mean, this guy, probably the best stuff you'll ever see out there.
And then with Smoltz, not only Smoltz, but that staff that you had to face with the Braves.
Yeah, well, I had 6 years. I just watched the Braves win the division every year over us in the NL East. And Smoltz was a guy, he was the power pitcher in that group. Come at you, 4-seam fastball, not a lot of movement. And then he had a slider, it was like a slurve. It was a hard curveball that was, unbelievable movement on it. So a lot of times you saw check swings because guys couldn't stop. But, I look back, I figured all my games against the Braves should be just erased, right? I mean, because I was a 277 hitter. That was pretty decent. I was probably a 295 hitter without those guys. So I had to face those guys for 6 years. Smoltz, Glavine, and unbelievable Greg Maddux. So not fair. Get rid of these guys.
You went 1 for 6 in your career against Pedro. You did not strike out. You went 5 for 18 with 2 doubles against Smoltz. That's a 278 batting average. You went 12 for 41 against Randy Johnson. That's a 293.
Wow, that's good.
Don't forget the home run, man. Can we get that on air?
Hembo, he didn't give me the stat.
Home run.
I'm going to Hembo.
And again, the one player that faced each of these pitchers at least 50 times, one guy, that was Gary Sheffield, and I believe cumulatively he was 237 against them all.
All right, he is Doug Glanville.
It's so good.
So it's a pleasure to have you be our Doug for a period of time in the morning. Great to see you, Doug. Thank you very much.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt, frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
Mike and Mike.
Everybody's waited long enough for a verdict. The thing has gone on since January. We got the Wells report. We've heard the testimony. We've had the... Give us the decision. Let's all move on.
Yeah, I agree. There is Deflategate fatigue going on across the country right now, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, they'll get on the field. Shefty is fired up.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get salty Shefty. That's the Shefty you don't want to have to deal with.
That's more.
Shefty in here earlier this morning. He was very interesting. Good stuff. I think our expectation is that we'll have something with some finality, or at least maybe the beginning of the next stage of this process soon when it comes to the Brady appeals hearing, but we'll see. Our researcher, Hembo, continues all morning long to Google inappropriately when it comes to testicular injuries. And with regards to that, it should be pointed out, Alex tells us that Billy Burns did actually complete the at-bat as well. More power to him. Doug Glanville said he once had the same thing happen. He completed the at-bat. Billy Burns apparently did finish the at-bat. It wasn't in the news account of this. He walked it off for a bit, got back in the box, grounded into a fielder's choice, and then presumably took the longest, most painful walk of his life back to the dugout.
There is something to finishing what you started with that. I can
ask a question.
Wanting to get back up.
You hit one in the gap after that. You legging out a triple?
And legging out nothing.
Are you diving head first?
Oh.
If you have to dive head first into the bag, are you doing it?
And the thing about it is, if you have to dive head first, you know it's coming.
You know, there's a move, and only I could make this announcement, but there's a move in chess when you know you've been beaten and you just turn your king down. Yeah. You just turn it over and you say, I'm done now. Huh? Isn't there a move, actually, what is it called in blackjack? You can, like, forfeit, right? A hand, you lose half your
surrender.
Bet. Surrender. Yeah. That's what I would do. If I had that play, I would look at the pitcher and just say, I surrender. There's 2 outs. I'm done here.
How about he got back in the batter's box? What would be the odds of him doing it again? It would be like the longest yard. You know, that time when the quarterback threw it into the ref?
Yeah.
2 times, 2 plays in a row?
Well, in the original longest yard, he didn't do it to the ref. He did it to the player.
To the player.
Who was played by the legendary Green Bay Packer, Ray Nitschke.
Correct. He blitzed twice and he threw it into his...
Burt Reynolds threw it directly into a private area.
So the only thing worse than once in the Couillons is twice.
All right, we've talked enough about this for one day. Thank you, everyone, for the reaction. It was funny. But it's time to move on. The top 125 players on the money list.
I do have one more email. It has the word exploding in it. Do you want me to go there? I'm kidding.
Let's not do that. No. The top 125 money earners keep their card for the following, automatically have their card for the following year. I was looking for the number, and that's what it is. Very quickly, there's an update from Chris Mortensen on the latest with the handling of the footballs. The changes in the ball handling procedures do not affect the preparation of the footballs the week before the games. The quarterbacks will still be allowed to prep the balls before handing them over on Friday before games. That has not changed. Mort reports that the teams have not yet received the policy change described that we've talked about all morning long. So little updates there. Okay, let's get back to the more important or interesting question. Alex Rodriguez, today's his 40th birthday, is having a sensational season.
Yes, he is.
He missed all of last year. Non-traditionally, but missed it nonetheless. If you had a vote, would you vote for Alex Rodriguez for comeback player of the year?
I would not. No, absolutely not. I would go toward a injured player. You know, let's throw a name out there right now. Prince Fielder. It's got the most hits in the American League, second in batting average. He played 42 games last year and had neck surgery. So nothing self-inflicted there. He had surgery, couldn't play the rest of the season. Now he's coming back and having an excellent season. I know you can go to a guy who's had a bad season and a good season. I start with somebody who missed most of the year or all the year with something out of their control. And that's most of the time that's going to be an injury and how they come back. You want to talk about bad play one year, good play the next? Okay, I guess. But as far as missing the year or missing time for PEDs, that's something that's self-inflicted. So there's just no way. To me, there will be too many other candidates to pick from who have been injured and are coming back having a good year for it to fall all the way down to me even thinking about that. He wouldn't even be on my – and not that it's A-Rod. To take the name out of it. Take anyone suspended for PEDs for a long period of the season. I'm probably not even looking at that person because I think there will be too many other candidates who have actually been injured or had bad seasons, which would be next for me, that I would go to before a guy who was suspended for PED. So, no, I would not vote for a person in that position.
The sole reason that I would consider it is for exactly what you just said. This is not traditionally an award that is given only to a player who has come back from an injury, but it is frequently given to someone who just had a bad year and then has a good one. So I would consider then the subject open for discussion, and I would at least give it some consideration. Let me then ask you the next question that arises from that. I don't believe A-Rod has any legitimate chance to stake a claim to being the MVP of the American League this year. He's a designated hitter, which I think skews it against you. And while he's having a very good year, his year is not surpassing that of everybody else, particularly not by the distance by which you would have to win as a DH. But if A-Rod were to hit 52 home runs and drive in 147 runs and lead the Yankees even more than he is to a division title, would you vote for him for MVP?
Yes, I would vote for him because that's on the play this year and how he's playing this year as compared to other players. So, yes.
I knew you'd say that.
Yeah.
That's why it's not my question. My question is this. Do you think he'd win it?
No.
Let's say he was the hands-down obvious choice. What's the last ridiculously obvious one?
Okay.
I mean, Miggy Cabrera won the Triple Crown, but a lot of people thought Trout deserved it. Let's say he is the hands-down obvious choice.
If he's the hands-down obvious choice, I think he would have a good shot. I think you would really need somebody else like right there to say close enough to where if you picked that person, it wouldn't be an unbelievable outrage. If he were hands-down the guy, I think you would get it.
I don't think so, and here's why. I'm only trying to do the logical consistency argument here, right? The people who determine who the MVP is are the Baseball Writers Association of America. Now, it's a subset of the baseball writers. I believe all of the baseball writers who have a certain tenure get Hall of Fame votes. Then there is a subset every year, and you get broken up into categories. You're voting for MVP, and you're voting for Cy Young, and you're voting for this, and you're voting for that. So I guess by luck of the draw, I could fall that the people voting for MVP this year are a little more lenient on the topic. But if you just sort of look at it consistently, it's the baseball writers who are not giving any of these guys a chance to get into the Hall of Fame.
No, they're not.
They're not voting for Bonds. They're not voting for Clemens. Nothing could be more clear than that Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens have Hall of Fame resumes, right? They have Halls of Fame resumes that are second to none. None.
Right.
And they're not in. So I don't think the people who are not voting for them for the Hall of Fame are not going to vote for a guy like A-Rod for MVP. Yeah. That's what I think.
It's quite possible. I mean, it's possible. I think if it's a clear-cut choice, you would just look unbelievably foolish to not. You would just look foolish.
The overwhelming majority of the Twitter reaction that we've gotten this morning has said we would not give A-Rod the Comeback Player of the Year award. Pat says no comebacks are for players deserving of the award that were injured or had something happen to them.
I agree with that.
Mike Foley from Norwalk tweets, Comeback Player of the Year or not, it doesn't change what A-Rod has done for the Yankees this year.
He's been great for
everyone
him.
mad.
He has been great for him. We're not denying that. We're just trying to take it a step further as how strong of a candidate would he be for Comeback Player of the Year?
Randy tweets, to come back from circumstances of your own doing opposes the spirit of the award. Again, I think that's the one part that some people have wrong. The spirit of the award, I don't know what the spirit is.
I don't either.
But the practice of the award is they sometimes give it to a guy who just had a bad year.
Exactly.
And has bounced back with a good year.
Not a huge fan of that either, quite. I like them coming back from something.
Sort of turmoil.
That they didn't create themselves.
Right. So overall, here's what's going to happen. We had a very, very interesting morning this morning with a lot of really good sports conversation. We gave you movie reviews of a big sports movie that I think is going to get a lot of attention. We got heavily into the latest on the Deflategate and the new procedure and protocols with the footballs. Plenty of sound bites from yesterday's Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremonies. The big trade was made in Major League Baseball, Johnny Cueto, and yet the only thing anyone is going to remember was the conversation about...
You know what it's helped me with? Shopping for you for your birthday.
You going to get me a cup?
Thinking about it.
It'd be a good gift. Only 10 days, shopping days left till my birthday.
Medium.
Well, I'll do the emoji today. We'll see you tomorrow, Mike and Mike.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNRadio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike.
The Washington Nationals are sitting high atop the NL East standings, but the Mets are lurking right behind them. They go head-to-head this weekend. The pregame Saturday is at 6 Eastern and Sunday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio.